Mount 9. 2-8. Mr. 2. 3-12. Boo 5. 18-26. On another occasion the manservant of an army officer was laid up with paralysis and was about to die, but Jesus healed him from a distance. Mount 8. 5-13. Lu 7. 1-10. This slave was terribly tormented, or terribly afflicted. Mount 8. 6. Which may, but does not necessarily, indicate that he was suffering intense pain. Though usually not painful, paralysis may be. Cramp-like pains occur in the spine and the extremities in cases of paralysis agitans Parkinsonism, or shaking palsy, and there is agonizing pain in paraplegia dolorosa, a form of paralysis associated with some cases of spinal cord cancer. Paralytics are persons afflicted with paralysis. The evangelist Philip preached, and he performed signs in the city of Samaria, curing many paralyzed persons. Act 8. 5-8. In Lydda, paralyzed Aeneas, who has been lying flat on his cot for 8 years, was told by Peter, "Aeneas, Jesus Christ heals you. Rise and make up your bed." At that, he rose immediately. Act 9. 32-35. Paran. The greater part of that vast wilderness region in which the nation of Israel wandered about for some 38 years before entering the Promised Land. New 10. 11, 12. The 2. 14. Having no fixed boundaries, Paran occupied the central and northeastern portion of the Sinai Peninsula. On the E was that part of the Rift Valley known as the Araba and also the Gulf of the Kaaba, on the S the wilderness of Sinai, on this the wilderness of Sin, and on the NW and N the wildernesses of Etham and Shur. Toward the Dead Sea to the Ne, Paran blended with, and perhaps included, the wilderness of Zin and perhaps even reached up to Beersheba near the mountains of Judah. 1-25. 1, 2. For the most part Paran was a rough mountainous region of limestone, plateaulic in places, the central section being between 600 and 750 meters, 2,000 to 2,500 feet high. 33. 2. Compare Hab 3. 3. It was also included as part of that great and fear-inspiring wilderness referred to in Deuteronomy 1. 19. 8. 15. Except during the brief rainy seasons, the gravel face of this rude country is devoid of green vegetation. Springs are few and far between. These factors emphasize how completely the nation of Israel, numbering perhaps 3 million persons, was dependent upon Jehovah for his miraculous provision of food and water during the many years they wandered in the wilderness. Acts 16. 1, 4, 12-15, 35. 2. 7. 8. 15, 16. Apparently the first reference to this wilderness of Paran was in the days of Lot, when Chedorlaomer and his allies defeated a number of cities in the vicinities of the Dead Sea and Edom as far as El Paran. GE 14. 4-6. Later, after Ishmael was dismissed by his father Abraham, he settled down in the wilderness of Paran and occupied himself mainly with the hunt. GE 21. 20, 21. However, the principal references to Paran are in connection with the wanderings of the Israelites. After leaving Mount Sinai, Israel camped at Taberah and Kibroth Hattaavah, then at Hatzeroth on the southern edge of Paran, before moving in toward Kadesh Barnea. New 10. 12, 33. 11. 3, 34, 35. 12. 16. Not long after entering Paran, the 12 spies were sent out to investigate Canaan. New 13. 3, 26. The bad report given by the majority upon their return resulted in Jehovah's decree that the Otextoi acute Miritra Longo, pardon 578 when the ruler of Egypt prohibited the exporting of it about 190 BCE. The use of leather parchment was invented in Pergamum. The English word parchment comes from Lat. Pergamena. Perhaps this means simply the popularizing of an already existing method of treating the skin so that both sides could be written on. Scrolls of parchment were much more durable than the less expensive papyrus scrolls. At 2 Timothy 4. 13. The Apostle Paul asked Timothy to bring the scrolls, especially the parchments. N.W. He does not indicate the contents of these requested items, but quite possibly he was asking for portions of the Hebrew scriptures so that he could study them while imprisoned in Rome. The phrase especially the parchments may indicate that both scrolls of papyrus and scrolls of parchment were involved. Among the early Romans, wooden tablets covered with wax were often used for writing matters of a temporary nature. Eventually sheets of leather or parchment were used instead for this purpose. The Latin word membraniscens was applied to such notebooks of parchment. In the text quoted earlier, Paul employed a Greek equivalent of the word in asking for the scrolls, especially the parchments branas. Thus some commentators have suggested that he was requesting scrolls of the Hebrew scriptures plus notes or letters of some type. So Moffat translates it, my books, and particularly my papers, and the New English Bible reads, the books, above all my notebooks. However, whether the parchments were in the form of notebooks or papers, or were parchment scrolls kx cannot be ascertained. Vellum. Parchments were normally